Part two of reviewing Thursday's loss. Did Demeco Ryans compromise the defense by not putting the Texans' best guys on the Jets' best players? That and more on today's show.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Texans fans, time to talk Texans. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman, Texans credential media member, and your Texans football analyst, alongside Texans credential media member and the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer of the show. You guys are family. You're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network family, your team every day. What are we talking about today? Well, I'll tell you. Part two of the embarrassing loss on Thursday. How much blame does Demeco Ryans deserve? Bouncing back from a horrendous second half, and I think on both sides of the ball, it was just flat out terrible to watch. But the security blanket for this offense, Nico Collins, returns this week. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season right now with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sarge,
what's going on?
Texans held Aaron Rodgers to 32 yards in the first half and 0 points, but then the Jets exploded in the second half. But I think the takeaway from that second half, and I think it's on everybody's mind, 3rd and 3 touchdown to Devontae Adams. Yep. 4th and 1 to Devontae Adams, picks up and moves the change. Third and short, a touchdown to Garrett Wilson. Both plays, all of those plays, basically, but on both of those Devontae Adams plays, he was covered by a safety that was either Eric Murray or Jalen Petrie. Both of those guys have struggled this year in coverage at times. I think my question is, to start off the show, is, listen, man, we got on the offense a lot throughout the year, and I think that the show that I did Friday, it was basically the issues of this team was put on full display Thursday night. It was a magnifying glass and a light over it, right?
Yep.
But I think that is one of those underlying issues that we haven't necessarily talked about a lot. As great as Jalen Petrie has been this year, as good as Eric Murray has been this year, in coverage, those guys have struggled. And why not have Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley on the Jets, number 1, number 2? One of those guys will be a Hall of Famer eventually one day, in Devontae Adams. Why put those safeties in compromising positions time and time after again?
John, I'm gonna start with this. I said on the show a couple of weeks ago that we're watching the way that, as bad as the offense is playing and the defense is playing good. I said, but what happens when the defense doesn't play good? Like, the defense has always been bailing out the offense, but it's almost like, well, if we're playing bad, y'all can't play bad. And on Thursday night against the New York Jets, the defense had a bad second half. And by having that bad second half, compiled with the fact that the Texans offense couldn't do anything, it led to what we watched. A Texans team who many had going to the AFC Championship, some had going to the Super Bowl, lose to a 2-6 team that had lost 5 games in a row. Anytime you have a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame wide receiver in Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, some two people who have that type of chemistry with each other, eventually, John, they're going to get on the same page. And no matter what you did to them in the first half, Demeco said we played the exact same scheme in the second half that we played in the first half. We just didn't play it as well. What did you expect? What did you expect from them two? You didn't think that they were going to go in? Aaron Rodgers was embarrassed. You didn't think he was going to go in and figure out what was going on? Now, you mentioned Jalen Petrie. One of the reasons why Jalen Petrie was moved from safety to the nickel cornerback position, so he could play that nickel cornerback position, that hybrid linebacker position, is so that he could cover in short space. So he can cover in short space and not have to, that from that safety position, be out of and a lot of times he was always in the wrong spot in the second year. In his second year, he was always in the wrong spot. And they also figured they could use him closer to the line because he doesn't mind tackling. But John,
talk to him. Talk to
Let me
him.
let me say this, man. Let me
You was at,
get
you
comfortable.
was at MetLife Stadium, Sarge.
John, let me tell you.
You had a front row seat to the disaster class that was put on in the second half.
Exactly. Let me tell you this, John. This is where I fought Demeco, because on 3rd and 3, you're going to go zero coverage. You're going zero coverage, right? You're blitzing. You're going one-on-one with every wide receiver that's out there. You're on the sidelines. You look and you see Jalen Petrie on Devontae Adams. You immediately call timeout. Immediately. Hey, look, I know you're trying to save your timeouts for the rest of the game, but you call timeout because it's automatically a mismatch. And if you can see it from the sideline, Aaron Rodgers can see it from the shotgun position. He already knows exactly where he's going, and he knows, hey, look, I just need this much amount of time. So you call the timeout. You call the timeout, and you say, hey, we're going to come back out. We're running the same defense. If you get caught on Devontae Adams, Jalen, I need you to jam him. Because if you look at that play, if you look at that touchdown play, if he jams him, that gives Henry To'oTo'o, who was blitzing, enough time to get to Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know if he would have sacked him, but he could have at least affected the throw. But, go ahead.
I just want to say, I 100% agree with you, but I just want to say, I 95% agree with you, because the 5% of me is saying, hey, listen, timeout. If we're going to call this play again, I need my best on the best. And I think that's been a problem for me a little bit, Sarge. I think because it's worked so much, because the front seven has really helped out the secondary as well, being able to get pressure, which they were able to do in the second half. I mean, you hold Aaron Rodgers 32 yards. That's something to pat your back about.
Yeah.
But when you see that, to your point, okay, you can jam and do all of that, but why not just have your top 2 cornerbacks on their top 2 receivers on a crucial down that the Jets need to pick up to extend their drive to hopefully get them to win, which is ultimately what they were able to do. And I mean, in that second half, the Jets, and I have it right here, my numbers may be skewed a little bit, but the Jets had 7 or 8 third or fourth down conversions.
Wow.
2 of those, we know for sure, on Jalen Petrie. 1 resulted in the touchdown, which was to Devontae Adams, and the other one was on Eric Murray. So I don't know if it's loyalty. And I think Steven Nelson made a good point on his podcast, talking about how Demeco maybe not value the secondary unit and doesn't value putting them in the best positions, because while they've been good this year, that's been something that we've talked about in the sense of, well, you don't want necessarily Jalen to be out there in the island. You don't want to necessarily have your rookie Caleb Bullock out there on the island with some of these slot receivers or some of these wide receiver ones that are playing the slot to find the mismatch. When you have a Derek Stingley who had a very good game against Devontae Adams, when you have him on your side of the ball.
Well, John, I put it like this. It was a bad matchup from the jump, right? And like I said, when Demeco's looking at that, he should have called timeout. And not only should he have told him, hey, look, if you're on Devontae, you got to jam him. Just jam him. I don't need you to do anything. Just jam him and give us enough time, because we're going to get the pressure. But even if you're not going to jam him, you tell your rookie safety, hey, look, the mismatch is wherever Devontae Adams is. Because if Kamari's on Garrett Wilson, he can hold him. If Derek is on Garrett Wilson, he can hold him. Now we got to worry about Devontae Adams. So you find Devontae Adams, and whoever's holding him, you shade to that side. I don't know why with 1 wide receiver on one side that Kalen Bullock was on the right half when he should have been on the left half where there was 2 wide receivers. And once again,
he was outside of that hash, so he was you're right. He was favoring that side of the ball the field way too much. I agree.
Exactly. And so at that point, if you're Demeco Ryans, you call the timeout. And you call the timeout and you say, hey, look, this is what we have to do. And I'm harping on that play because you also have seen Jalen Petrie was having a bad game. He was having a bad game. And if you're going to put him in position, you're not putting him in a position to win. You're putting him in the position to automatically fail. John, he was beat as soon as the ball was snapped. When the ball was snapped, Devontae didn't have to do too many moves. He just ran by him. In no world, I'm talking about Madden. I'm talking about Bill Walsh football. I'm talking about I know I
Tecmo Bowl.
Tecmo Bowl. Nowhere is there that Jalen Petre can hold a Devontae Adams. And your coaching staff should have known that. And I know that Demeco controls the timeouts. And if you see that and you're trying to win the game, it's only a one-score game. I mean, it's only a one-point game. You still have an opportunity. Use that timeout and say, hey, this is what we got to do. I did not like what Demeco did. I did not like the way that he was calling defenses in the second half. And you're getting predictable now, Demeco. You're getting predictable when it comes to calling these defenses. Don't get me wrong. I think that Demeco Ryans is a defensive mastermind. But everybody know you're blitzing on third down. Yeah. Everybody knows you're blitzing on third down.
And Garrett Wilson had beat Jalen Petre, and I thought Jalen Petre made a hell of a play early in the game, but he beat him for a touchdown. So it's just like, I had a conversation with Texans Cap about this on social media. Listen, you brought in Miles Bryant, but we can't find him on the field.
Right.
And at the very least, Miles Bryant has been a very successful slot cornerback in the NFL, nickel cornerback. So as great as Jalen Petre has been playing, again, I think he's a top 10 player on this team right now. I do think when you know it's an obvious passing down, you got to get guys out there that has been successful in obvious passing downs. Now, we just got on Demeco Ryans about the defensive side of the ball, mainly in the second half, but it wasn't just necessarily Demeco and that defense in the second half that stunk it up. The offense stunk it up. So we got more to talk about for the Locked On Texans podcast, and you guys better be ready. Sarge may take that big hat off, and he may explode.
Hey,
we got more
man.
Texans talk when we come back. Texan fans, this is a great opportunity to let you guys know about Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome, like myself, 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high network for any network. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold today. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold memberships is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And also, Texans fans across the nation, this is a great time to let you guys in on Prize Picks. Sarge, I don't know about you. I've been locking them in.
What?
I've been locking them in. I've been. Some of my picks have favored, but Thursday I put one in and it didn't go through. Right, I hit on Tank Dell. Had a great game, but I didn't hit on CJ Stroud. I didn't hit on. I didn't hit on Dalton Schultz. However, guys, I'm not going to talk about the negatives. I'm going to talk about the positives. One of the biggest positives is right now you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action in sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. That's where the best football players come from. So how about be a part of that and make you some extra cash? Be the best with the best with Prize Picks. They're the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive and well. Download Prize Pick today on your phone. You can visit on the computer as well, but it's much more exciting on your phone. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. If this is your first time watching the show, please subscribe, like, and comment to the podcast on YouTube and tell a friend to do the same as well. You guys are really showing us a lot of love in the comment section. We got to get back to the comment section one day, Sarge.
For sure.
Shout them out. But right now, we got to get back to the game. The embarrassing loss suffered by the Houston Texans. And you guys know the numbers. 32 yards in the first half, nearly 180 yards in the second half allowed to Aaron Rodgers. 0 touchdowns in the first half, 3 TDs in the second half. They did not really, like you say, make an adjustment to the adjustments the Jets made, and that blew back in the Houston Texans' face defensively. Now, I said what I had to say about this offense Friday, but Sarge, I know you've been steaming over there for the last couple of days. There were no adjustments made by the offense in the second half. But even if we go back to the first half, I don't think that the offense did a good job of helping out their defense scoring when their defense gave them the opportunities. But they did score in the first half, did not in the second. What were your biggest takeaways from the second half? And how can the Texans bounce back?
All right, John. Let me say this, because we're talking about how much blame we should give Demeco in the first segment. And I said a lot. John, do you know, and I'm going to read these numbers off to you. This is what the New York Jets did. They only had 3 possessions. 3 possessions. I'm not talking about what happened at the end of the game. I'm talking about their first 3 possessions in the second half. 11 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. 12 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. 8 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. John, there is no possible way, if you're a defensive-minded coach and you've watched that stale, pathetic offense that the New York Jets have, there's no way you give up, 240 yards and 3 touchdowns? John, I put it like this. It was almost as if that looked like 7-on-7. That's exactly what it looked like. That defense trying to stop Aaron Rodgers looked like 7-on-7. And that's why I say Demeco deserves to be criticized this time around. Listen, he's done a lot of great things in the city of Houston alone. He's done a lot of great things as a player. He's done a lot of great things as a coach. But on Thursday night, it was lethargic. Now, combine that with the fact of, look, John, I'm tired of it, bro. I'm absolutely tired of it. I'm about to sound like a broken record again.
Tired of what, Sarge?
I'm
what
tired of the second half offensive woes. It's horrible. And at some point, it's going to have to stop, John. It's going to have to stop. I don't care if that means that you got to replace Bobby Slowick. You may have to replace Bobby Slowick. I know that that's your friend. I know y'all spent a lot of time together, Demeco, when you was in San Francisco. No, it's time to, your loyalty is to the team, not to a person.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because I've been waiting to ask you this question for a couple of days now, and the Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Hey, listen, is loyalty holding this team back? Because you look at loyalty to Bobby Slowick, you look at loyalty to the drafted player, King and Green, who we think should have been replaced. You shouldn't have put him out there against Quentin Williams knowing he was struggling. And Kendrick Green going out there, that's his first time taking snaps in a live game, I thought was very irresponsible. But has loyalty held this team back a little bit?
Loyalty has definitely held this team back when it comes to the offensive coordinator. Loyalty has held this team back when it comes to the offensive line coach. To those two. Let's start with those two. And people keep saying, why do you keep talking about Bobby when it's an offensive line problem? That's why I threw in Chris Strausser. But let's just talk about Bobby. Like, how many times do you have to watch the film? Bobby, it's almost like you can put the film on and then you can say, oh, are we watching Chicago? Are we watching Jacksonville? Are we watching Indianapolis? Are we watching Green Bay? Are we watching Minnesota? Are we watching the New York Jets? Who are we watching? Because it looks like everybody's the same team. On the defense side of the ball, everybody is the same because they're running the exact same schemes on you, Bobby. And how can you not fix that? Chris Strausser, at some point, you've got to tell Juice, hey, man, pick your head up and start pointing. Hey, watch for him, do this, do that. At some point, you got to tell him that. Okay, we can talk about Kenyon Green. And I know that I'm animated right now, but I was there watching this in real time, and I'm saying to myself, what is going on? Because you tell us, last week, Demeco told us, let's focus on the positive of the offensive line. All right, cool. Let's focus on the positives. Okay, let's see. Oh, wow. How positive can you be when your offensive line gives up 8 sacks? How positive can you be when CJ is constantly running for his life? So, Bobby, You don't have any quick development plays. You don't have any quick development plays. You don't know how to run screens to slow down some of that pressure.
And I want to say, again, sequencing of plays. I don't think a screen on 3rd and 9 when maybe it would have helped you out in an early down situation. When your quarterback has been getting hit, I think that would work. It shouldn't have to always be late.
John, a halfback pass to your quarterback doesn't work either. That doesn't work either. And I know you talked about that. I got it. But John, my thing is this. The Houston Texans have an interior offensive line issue. Something that they have been having since training camp. Bobby tried to sell me when we were in Ohio. Bobby tried to sell me on the fact that, oh, no, I'm just teaching CJ how to go through his progressions. That's why he's holding the ball just a little bit longer, and that's why he's getting so much pressure. He tried to sell me on that, and at first I said, okay, CJ Stroud, second-year quarterback, learning. I got it. Hey, Bobby, that's a good strategy. Until I kept watching, and I'm saying to myself, hey, man, you're ruining him. Because he's not a quarterback who likes to hold. He's not a quarterback who wants to hold the ball. He wants to move the chains. He wants to hit who he needs to hit. If his first option is open, let him throw to the first option. And if he comes back and that's the same option that he has to throw to 5 times, I don't care if he throws to Nico 5 times, Tank 5 times in a row. I don't care. But you got to make it happen, Bobby.
So my question to you is, how can the Texans – because I mean, they got an extended version of a bye. Like they got 10 days until they play again, or they had from their last game. What do you think they can do? Because they can't trot this out against Detroit.
John, I'm gonna be honest with you.
There's no chance.
Gerard Johnson gonna have to help call plays.
Help or call plays?
I don't want to say call because I don't know if he can call plays, but I think that him and Bobby together, pride. Look, you talked about loyalty. I also think that it's pride with Bobby. I also think that his pride won't allow him to ask for help. Now, he can come to the podium and tell us all day long, oh, well, blase this, blase that, with CJ this, that, another. No. You're at the end of the day, you're still calling these plays. Hey, man, CJ even said it about responsibility. Give CJ some more responsibility because what's happening, John? What's happening is you're damaging your franchise quarterback. And John, you've watched the Houston Texans long enough to know that David Carr was hit so many times that he started hearing footsteps. He started seeing ghosts. Not only that, you watched the Houston Texans long enough to know that at one point, Deshaun Watson, who was sacked 62 times. Wait, David Carr was sacked 76 times, right?
Yeah, I think Deshaun was 67.
Okay. And so at one point when Deshaun kept getting, so that's just sacked. We're not talking about quarterback pressure. We're not talking about how many times he took hits. John, at some point, Deshaun started hearing footsteps and seeing ghosts too. If in your second year, you're starting to do that because you no longer trust your offensive line, and that goes back to Chris Strausser, and that goes back to that entire offensive line unit, not just Kenyon. It goes back to Laramie, Kenyon, Juice, Shaq, Titus, all of them. You're responsible for CJ. CJ's the franchise. CJ is the one that if you protect him, he's going to take you to the promised land. But evidently,
too.
Look, he trying to get you through the Red Sea. You want to still stay in Egypt. You don't want, what, my bad.
John, look, but I tell you what, when we talk about bouncing back, I do think help is on the way. Help is on the way. The security blanket Nico Collins returns for the Houston Texans the next time they take the field. And I think that's where we're going to see the biggest help come from. Tank Dell had a monster game, and it was very good to see him get going.
Mechie was open too, John. Sorry.
No, listen, you ain't got to tell me. We share the same name, so I know he was open. But getting Nico back helps, and I think that's going to help not only in the first half, but for 4 games, all 4 quarters. So we got to talk about the security blanket of Nico Collins returning back for the Texans next game. And remember, Sarge brought up that point. I'm playing this clip.
Yeah, I think he's always been all in on it. He understands how valuable that is as a quarterback to just be able to stay on the field, get to third and manageables. And that's really what it's about. It's my job to get number one as open as possible all the time. But, not always going to do that. And when I'm wrong, how right can you make me? Are we wrong? Like, man, I just called a play and we lost 4 yards, or can I call a play and be wrong and we gained 6? And that started towards the end of camp. That happened a lot. He really is bought into staying on rhythm, getting the ball out on time, and really getting it to our playmakers' hands as often as possible. And that's not easy to do. Like, you have to be very deliberate in how you approach every day to go put that into action, and it definitely has grown.
Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. Some of the stuff we watch on TikTok, some of the stuff we watch on social media in general can really dumb you down. How can you spend your time wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsors at Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism, the Great American Story, the Land of Hope for some people, or Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution. And some of y'all need to check that out as soon as possible if you haven't already checked it out. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Right now, go visit hillsdale.edu/locked on to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked on to register. Again, hillsdale slash .com, hillsdale.edu/locked on. And also, Texan fans, listen, FanDuel is still hooking y'all up. They're going to keep hooking y'all up. I know Thursday's loss was very sad to see, and maybe some of y'all was trying to get that, big money, but they still hooking y'all up in a great way. You can get ready to tackle the NFL action, the Texans action, even if you want to get in on some of the Rockets action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So even if you're sad because your team lost, go on and place your $5. That's all it takes, $5, and they give you $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, the sportsbook app, gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. You can view live play-by-play, check the latest stats while you're in the middle of the game. You can do all of that and so much more on the same place you place your bets. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Low risk, high reward. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment with FanDuel matter. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, the security blanket, Nico Collins, will be taking the field after missing some time with a hamstring injury. Sarge, just talk about how big that is to get Nico Collins back.
Man, listen, and I know that for the last 2 segments, I've done a lot of hollering. I've done a lot of being aggravated, and I always like to end on the positive, John. So, this is something that I really and thoroughly enjoy seeing. Nico Collins coming back to the field, giving CJ a big target in order to throw to, and he is one of those guys that is not going to take a long time to get open. He's going to be open instantly. So even if the offensive line doesn't hold up long enough to protect CJ knows that he has a big wide receiver that's 6'4", 200 plus pounds that can get open, who has a huge catch radius. And it also having Nico back on, because Nico's still a top 10 wide receiver. Even though he's been out for the last 4 games, he still is a top 10 wide receiver. And in the next couple of weeks, with the competition that he's going to be going up against, he's going to move right back into the top 5. But what it does, John, having Nico Collins back on the field, on that side of the field, now you got the defenses have to play honest. And With Stephon Diggs going out, they didn't have to play as honest. They could roll the coverage over to wherever Tank was and then say, well, we're going to make Robert Woods and John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson beat us. But now, when you have Nico Collins back, somebody that CJ Stroud has tremendous chemistry with, he's going to make it's going to look it John. There was a point where when Nico's been out these last 4 games that a lot of these teams stopped playing too high safeties. They stopped playing too high safeties. They playing single high safety. You can't do that now because Nico's back. And so he's going to keep you honest. And if you roll the coverage over to stop him, then you're going to have to worry about Tank Dell, who, by the way, if if last week was any indication of Tank Dell is back, then we're about to see Tank Dell go to that next step. Now, when you don't have a Stephon Diggs in the game, you got Tank Dell to worry about, you got Nico Collins to worry about. This is where you can get the John Mechie's and hopefully, because we keep saying this every week too, and hopefully we can see a better Dalton Schultz. Hopefully this will open up the field for Dalton Schultz. So having Nico Collins back is not going to fix all of the offensive woes that the Houston Texans have, but it will help out a lot.
Yeah, it just him coming back like you said, it's just it opens up things for everybody else. Now, I think that so the touchdown, the potential touchdown to John Mechie that was missed by CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud missed Mechie a few times. There was a few times where he was wide open and didn't get a look, or I think those two have to do a little bit of soul searching and get on one accord because the opportunities are there. And I think we do need to talk about, how can John Mechie make the most of his opportunities, or how can those opportunities become more consistent for John Mechie? And I think that's really where the talking point should be. Because, again, at one point before Diggs went down, he had more snaps on the field as a blocker than a receiving router, route running receiver. So I think that's one of the biggest things that's bothering me so much with Bobby Slogan, his play calling. But back to Nico Collins, that big body radius, like the touchdown to John Mechie, that was a throw that I thought was meant for Nico Collins in terms of where the ball was, knowing that the 6'4" receiver who's already long enough to put his hand, he'll stretch his body out some more to make that play. And that play would have been a deciding factor in the game for the Houston Texans. That helps them with momentum. They don't score at all. They don't get points because of the missed field goal. So things like that can kind of start falling back into place for Houston. You'll see CJ Stroud go, revert back to some of those comfortable passes that he's used to making because he has a guy out there that in year one, him coming into the league, Nico Collins' third year, and John, chemistry was just automatically there. Yeah,
I was just gonna say real quick, and the fact that people underestimate that Nico Collins can take the top off of a defense as well with his speed. His speed gets, I think people underestimate his speed as well. So that another reason why he keeps the defenses honest.
Yeah, he does, because there was a couple of throws Thursday where, it went to one attempt was to Dalton Schultz. I think another one was to Robert Woods. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a Nico Collins route. That's a Nico Collins pass attempt. So I think right now CJ Stroud is way more rattled than we're talking about. I think that offense, I don't think he has any trust in any of those guys. Not the highest paid tackle on the team, offensive lineman on the team, the highest paid player on the team, not Titus Howard, not any of those guys in the middle. I don't think the trust is there. Yeah, and we've seen it time and time again from quarterbacks. You mentioned David Carr. I mentioned him Friday, but we've seen it throughout the league. And Robert Griffin, I think, is one of those cases where those hits affect your throwing motion.
Yes.
Especially when you can't necessarily get the time that you need for some of these long developing routes. Yep. So Nico is just, I think he's not the end all be all type of problem solver, but what he can be is I'm the guy that's going to allow everybody to eat, B.
Yep.
That's the type of, like, if he was a hustler, you would have loved to be hustling with him, because I probably shouldn't use that analogy, but you want to be around him because you know what? I'm getting mine, and I'm going to make sure you get yours too.
Yep.
But what's going to have to happen? That chemistry is there with him and Nico. The chemistry is there between CJ and Tank. If you don't find a way for those opportunities to be maximized for a player like John Mechie with no Stephon Diggs, then we're going to keep having the same conversation. And this team is going to be, I think, a major letdown in the way to some people in their eyes.
Well, John, I'm going to say this, and you know, you know, when you use that analogy, that got me to thinking. It just goes back to what Tank Dell always says. Hey, man, when I'm looking at somebody else getting blessed, that means there's blessings in the neighborhood.
Rain down on me.
So Tank
Rain down on me. Help me. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. We'll be back all week with more Texans talk. Please subscribe, like, and comment if this is your first time watching the Locked On Texans podcast and listening as well. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Follow the Locked On Texans page at Locked On Texans as well. Big Sarge.
And you can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a good week. Peace.